So welcome back to my channel. This is Gamer Dom, and we're continuing to look at the different classes of vehicles in the game for the newer players in the game, or players who just kind of come from a different background, who haven't had the historical background that some of us have had around playing games, playing watching war films, etc, etc. So looked at heavy tanks, the two broad varieties, and trying to keep it as simple as possible to sort of help with people to understand a little bit more about how these things play. So categorizing the different types. So heavy tanks, the big fat boys that have the heavy armor. The more mobile support type heavy tanks was the latest video we did, looking at the two broad types of light tanks there are in the game, so the passive spotters and the more active spotters. And now I think it's time to look at the medium tanks. So mediums, the clues in the name, guys, are right, medium. These are not heavies and they're not lights. They sit somewhere between, and of course therefore their play style sits somewhere between. Now I'm going to split them out. I'm going to look at sort of standard, if you like, inverted commas, medium tanks. I'm then going to look at sniping medium tanks, and then sort of specialist autoloader type medium tanks, because I think those are the three main categories. Now they all have similarities. These are tanks that ideally are not there for stand-up fights. They're not really the sort of vehicles that do particularly well in a toe-to-toe engagement, certainly not when it comes to toe-to-toe engagement with heavy tanks. They just do not have the armor of an equivalent heavy tank at their tier. What they do have, however, is usually, well, again, there's always exceptions, but we're talking general here. Usually they have more speed and mobility than a heavy tank will. Not generally as much as a light tank has, but they're sort of, that's where they sit between. But they tend also to have a pretty good gun. So their gun is not going to be far different from the heavy tank gun, and usually better than the light tank variety. So again, that's where they sit. Medium sits between light and heavy. Now in many armies of today, the sort of main battle tank, or sort of post-war anyway, most armies, the main battle tank became a medium classification vehicle, because they found that the sort of heavy tanks were too limiting in that they were bloody heavy, lot of stress and strain on the engines and on the tracking equipment, and also just moving them around was so much harder. Light tanks are very much a specialism, so mediums became the default de facto medium main battle tank in many armies in the post-war period. So I'm here with the T-3485 Rudy. This is a premium tier 6 Russian medium tank, and in many ways this T-3485 is kind of archetypal medium tank. It's got a pretty good gun, so this thing comes with a 85mm, as the name would dictate, and it's not bad. It's, you know, 144 penetration, 194 with premium rounds, 180 average damage, and DPM of 1800. But also it's pretty mobile, so it will do a top speed of 54 kph and a power ratio of 15.18. So it gets around reasonably quickly. Its traverse speed 53.9 is actually very good indeed. So it's got everything that a medium, archetypal medium, will have. Reasonable mobility, a reasonable gun. It's also got a little bit of armor, so it's not like a light tank. Its hull is only 45 at the side and 40 at the rear, but it's very well angled. I mean, look at that angling there. It means that will be helped considerably. Now it ain't no heavy tank. It's not going to stand up in a straight duel. Put my teeth back in with what's equivalent at tier 6. So a T-150, for instance, a T-150 heavy tank will blitz this every single time if they go toe to toe. Where this thing wins out is on the mobility side. Turret's armor's not bad, 90, 75, 52. So again, this is something you need to look at with your tanks, and I've said all the way through this series is you need to look at your vehicle and look at its stats, maybe compare it to other vehicles and see where it has strengths and weaknesses. Now, Russian tanks often have pretty good turret armor, so they can in some cases get hull down and end up bouncing lots of shots. Now if I look at the tier 10 Russian medium, this is the T62A, I mean, look at this armor on the turret is 240, and look at the rounding of that turret. So this thing is, you know, can be, if you can get it in a hull down position where the enemy can only see the turret, this will bounce shots all day long. And in those sort of rare situations, it can be a bit more of a brawler face to face with the heavies if there's no artillery in the game. So mobility is your friend, as is that gun, and also in most cases medium tanks have pretty reasonable view range, and they can also do a job as a scout for your team. So again, they are not as good at scouting as a light tank, equivalent light tank, although some would argue top tier light tanks are probably not as good as a top tier medium for scouting, but whatever. They're not as good as that, but they can do that job. And if you're in a battle where you are the only, or there's no light tanks, or maybe they've been knocked out early on, you can do a pretty effective job yourself as a medium. But as I say, it's all about mobility. It's all about getting your tank in a favourable situation, which is generally unfavourable to the enemy. That's what you're looking to do. And typical equipment on these things, well, vents are useful because they help with everything, but often you'll find, and often I'll put coated optics on these things just to improve their view range, help them to have that little bit extra spotting ability, as well as a rammer and gun laying drive or vertical stabilizers if you can get it. So yeah, very, very good at wolf packing as well. That's another tactic you will see employed by particularly platoons of mediums, and particularly these sort of archetypal medium tanks that have good guns and can get around pretty quickly. You know, 2 or 3 of these, you know, isolating and taking down one enemy tank and then moving on and doing the same to another one. Very, very powerful indeed, and you'll see gameplay often of very good players who are platooned up with each other, and they will do exactly that. They'll wolf pack. They'll spot an isolated, you know, it doesn't matter what it is, heavy tank, medium tank, TD, and they'll launch themselves at it. And say three of these things circling and killing you know, or even a higher tier tank target that's isolated is just quite a sad thing to watch, because there's nothing they can do about it. So wolf packing is definitely a thing. Now, other types of mediums you get are the sniper type mediums. So some of these would be examples of these would be things like the Panther and the Panzer IV Schmaltern, the premium medium tank. Now these sort of things like the VK3001D would be another example of these sort of snipey distance fighting medium tanks. Now where they are very, very good is exactly that. They want to use that gun and pick enemy off at distance. They're not really going to get as close in as something like a T-34-85 or a T-62A. These things are really there as sort of support sniper type tanks. So you want to, with these things, you want to keep the engagement at long range, and you want to use what mobility they have just to get into a nice position, and then fire a couple of shots and then move on before you get sort of focused and killed off by the enemy fire, because again, these medium tanks sit between mediums and between heavies and lights. So if you are camping a bush in a Panther, firing your gun gaily at the enemy, you will be spotted very, very quickly, certainly much quicker than a light tank would be, and therefore you need to assume that every shot you fire, you then have to move. And that's really what these things are for. It's fire a shot, maybe two if you're lucky, then move on. And you know, you look at, this is the Panther 1 75mm gun, very, very good accuracy of 0.32, aim time of 2.3, and 198mm of penetration, and which is very, very good indeed, but only 135 actual alpha damage. So high velocity shell that doesn't actually do a huge amount of damage, but is all about the bulk, how much fire you put into it. So sniping is very much this tank's role in the battlefield, and you need to make sure that you don't try and play it like a rampaging bull like the T-34-85 or a Cromwell or a one of these fast moving medium tanks. This thing can get around. I mean, it's got reasonable mobility, what's that, 55 kph, 15.34, but look at the traverse speed, 36, whereas what, the T-34 was 50 something. So this thing turns like a brick basically, but it can move around. So it's about relocating, getting to a different place, firing, providing some fire support for your other mediums. Could be for the heavies, it could be taking out enemy light tanks, it doesn't matter, but that's really going to be your role, because again, you can't stand up in a slugfest with this thing. 85mm of frontal armor at tier 8, even when it's as angled as that is not going to cut the mustard. And the front of the turret, 120, sorry, I keep saying tier 8, tier 7, 120mm of turret armor, and look how flat that is unless you happen to hit the gun mantle. Most tanks at tier 6 can do 120mm of penetration. So yeah, this thing is not designed for a stand-up fight. So the third sort of class of mediums out there are the autoloaders, the sort of heavy, well, the sort of support mediums. Now these have a bit of a dual role. So you've got things like this one, you've got the Swedish premium, where is it now, where's it go, here we go, Steve 4257, again an auto-loading medium tank, and or the Skoda T25, a Czechoslovakian, sorry, shouldn't say that, a Czech tier 6 medium tank with an autoloader. Now these kind of tanks can play very much the same role as your T-34 or T-62As, that sort of wolf-packing, snarling, circling tank, because they tend to be very, very good at that. Their big danger is that the clip limitations. So once they've fired off their 3, 4, whatever it is shells they've got in their breech, they're going to have a long time to reload, and that's their biggest weakness. But if you're wolf packing with you know, say you were taking the Skoda T25 with a Cromwell B and maybe a Rudy, that can be extremely effective, because this thing punches out quite a lot of damage in very short order of time. So what is it, 1.33 seconds to reload each shell, 3 shells on the magazine, and then to completely reload the clip is 8 seconds. So you know, you can spit out quite a lot of damage, 110 average damage, 132 average penetration. So you know, it's a high damage dealer for its tier in a very short space of time. And this thing, wolf packing with either another one of the same thing or a more conventional medium tank, is extremely powerful. Not really going to be great at distance shooting. I mean, there are exceptions, and this thing actually has reasonable aim time, but its dispersion is 0.38, which is not great. So it's not really going to be doing this. And you know, again, the auto-loading mediums are very much in the cast of wanting to get stuck in, to basically get up close and personal, to ideally circle. The way I think about mediums particularly is like Second World War or First World War dogfights between fighters. It's that snarling kind of mess and melee of planes whizzing around all over the place. And medium tank play is very, very similar to that. It's about getting the advantage, focusing your fire on as many, or on the lowest health enemy tanks, taking them out the game, taking guns out the game, and then moving on to the next one. And generally, you'll see platoons work really well in a medium if they combine their actions, or stronghold games where it's a wolf pack of medium tanks who basically all focus on one or two enemy tanks at a time before moving on to the next one or two, and that way they take them out and then move on, and it's guns out the game at that point. If you can focus fire, you can concentrate on what you want to take down. These things can be incredibly powerful. So medium tanks, as I said, can't reinforce this enough, they're not going to be facing down heavy tanks, and their role is very much there as that sort of link between the lighter tanks, so the scouts who are out there ideally spotting the enemy and seeing what opportunity they can do damage towards the end of a game, and between them and the heavy tanks, whose main role is really to get up close and personal and fight it out with the enemy heavies. And the mediums sit between the two. They can do the scouting bit to a degree, they can do the fighting bit to a degree, well, to a large degree actually, but really what they're about is that sneaky getting in behind, causing as much mayhem as possible. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the medium tanks. Now let's see it in action. So this is NL Jens, I guess Netherlands Jens, Dutch Jens, driving the Russian Tier 8 premium medium tank, the T-44-100. He's on Malinovka, he's one of the chosen three. He's got some nice matchmaking here. So he is going to show us how mobility counts for this thing. Now, as I said, this medium tanks are kind of a bit of a hybrid. They kind of reside, well, they're not just kind of a hybrid, they are a hybrid between the heavy tanks and the light tanks. And they can do a bit of both, and they can do some reasonable spotting, they can do some reasonable brawling, but really it's all about mobility with mediums, particularly these sort of mediums. We'll see in a minute the sort of snipey or autoloader types. So we're coming up here trying to get some early shots. Type 64 got himself rather exposed there and paid the price. So did the AMX, so we get shot into him as well. Oh, it took a while to repair his tracks there and pull back. So Jens is going to be... Ooh, what's happening with the turret there? Jens is going to be a little bit aggressive here. Well, after he's driven into his own TDs, that is. And you're going to see him do something that if you were doing it in a heavy tank, it would be suicidal. He's going to start going up the hill, and you notice he's all alone. Now you can, it's not always a good idea unless you're a good player like Jens is here. It's not always a great idea to go up on isolated and on your own into one particular area. But somebody needs to come up here, and a medium is as good as any. If nothing else is coming up here, he can at least spot and see what's coming for his team, and to a degree be able to deal with an awful lot of what they can send against him. He is top tier, remember, so it makes a big difference. Spotted that Tiger 1. His view, I don't know whether he's using coated optics, but his view range is extremely good. Puts a nice shot into that Tiger. Poor old Tiger has not got a hope. Can't deal. Oh, now he's been smacked. AMX unloads a couple of shells, but look, he's got really good. He's using his turret here, not just using his head. He's using his turret, getting into a position where his turret armor is bearing the brunt of anything they throw at him, and it's pretty good. He is top tier after all. So he's pulling back because you don't want to push your luck too much up there. And also he wants the enemy to think that he's pulling back. That's always another thing. Now it looks like the Spick is coming his way, and the Hellcat I think is coming his way. Oh, there's an enemy Panther. Enemy Panther thought he had an opportunity there to capitalise on nobody being on the hill, and paid the price with a big shell through his turret. So Jens has done well, 1500 damage so far. There's another shell into the Panther. Tiger 1 is still pushing up. And you can see he's just using this mobility. He's spotting those tanks for his team, but also inflicting damage. And now this is taking the mickey. He is going to bait these heavy tanks. Side scraping, trying to get some shots on these heavies as they try and get up the hill. Missed that one on the IS. Aiming for the commander's hatch. You can see has changed to skill rounds, so he's using premium ammunition here. Bounces that shot, bounces the reply from the IS. Oh, it looks like the IS is only using the small gun because it is blocking only 160 damage, so that means he's got a little bit more ability to play with here. Ignores the IS, takes down the Tiger 1, guns out the game. Still firing premium, and that's just going straight through this IS's turrets. Turret. Actually manages to hit the gun rather than to finish him off with the last bit of damage, but finally gets the kill. Switches back to standard rounds immediately because he doesn't need premium for that Panther. There's another nice shell into his 3,000, nearly 3,500 damage here. And they've just got no answer for him up here. T150 looked like he was AFK there, it didn't look like he was responding at all. So Jens has had a real moment over here in the hill. You can see the speed. He got up here before the enemy heavies did. He then was able to spot them as they came down. They tried to get up the hill, and he actually outbrawled them using the advantages he's had around keeping relocating and making sure that he used his turret armour to good effect. However, the team is still, well, it's on a knife edge. 6 plays 5. It's still plenty of time left for this to go tits up. Walks into a KV-85, puts a shot in, backs up and bounces the KV's return shell. Doesn't manage to penetrate the KV with his return shot. Got to keep moving. There is still an arty, remember, so you have to be a little bit careful of that. Can he pick up the kill? Oh, leaves the KV on 11 health. Ah, but there's a new prize. Puts a shot into the Hellcat. Didn't go for the artillery because he recognised the artillery was already on pretty low health. Wanted the more damage. 4,800 damage, 2,000 blocked, 1,300 assistance. What a game. And he's done it all by being aggressive. You can see he's just constantly relocating, constantly looking for opportunities, using his view range, using his mobility, using the armour that he has, which is in the turret, to bounce those shells. Ferdinand isn't looking, but he's focusing more on the Pershing. Puts another nice shell into the Pershing. Now look at this. He's going to try and track. Yep, there we go. Trying to track the Ferdinand in place. Could quite finish him off. And he is down. So where's the enemy? Oh, they're all up in our area, up the top there. Firing on the move is not his strength. 6,000 damage. Wow. I really must get my T44-100 out and play with it again. Okay, there's a oh, the ultimate taking the mickey there. The Su-100 gets round behind him. Here we go. This is what mediums do. Came straight at him, came over the hill, dropped down beside him, spun round, and he would have picked up the kill but for the fact that Spick came in with him. But that's the sort of wolf packing you can do in a good medium. Now it's just the AMX to take down. A light against a whole load of mediums. Nah, not much of a fight. And there you go, he's down. So what a game, really what a game. So a monstrous game from Jens there. Finished up with the ace tanker. You got spotter, bruiser, fire for effect, shell-proof, cool-headed, patrol duty, confederate, steel wolf, and of course high caliber. Look at that, 6,894 damage and 2 kills, 1934 base XP. Fired 36 shots, hit with 30 of them and penned with 28 for that's nearly 7,000 damage. He took 13 hits himself, only one of which penned him. He used the armour that there was on that medium, the turret, to block 2,600. Okay, he was top tier, so there's a kind of inevitability about that. But even so, only fought when he had the opportunity, when he had the advantage, when he could play dirty. And 2,853 assistance damage. Now he was running some kind of bonuses, but even so, look at this, 309,000 credits. I don't think that's the highest I have ever seen in any game. 309,000. Wow. Even after firing some premium in that, it still made a lovely profit of 248,388 credits. And if you'd removed his bonus personal bonuses there, still would have been over 120,000 profit on that game. And with his XP, with his premium bonus for being in a premium tank, his XP was 3,191. So what a monstrously good game. And you know, as I said in the garage, these sort of mediums are all about mobility. It's about getting around the battlefield, getting into a situation where you have the advantage, dealing with the enemies if you can in isolation, but using the advantages you have, so using that speed that you generally have in a medium, and if you've got any armor like these Russian ones do with turret, getting into a situation where all they can shoot at is your turret, and you will have a good time in it. Okay, so we've seen the brawly medium tank, the fast moving one. Let's have a look at a sniper medium. Now this is the WoTs, the Panzer 58 WoTs, tier 8 German medium tank. Got a reasonable amount of turret armor, but really it's all about that very accurate, pretty fast firing gun on this thing. It's driven for us here by Lonely Boy. Oh, is he lonely? He's platooned up with a couple of other mates in, so he's not lonely at all. He should change his name immediately. They're on Krelia. It's a tier 9 game, so they're middle tier. And here we go. He's going to get in a situation where he can try and snipe, relying on what's been seen. Got into a position where he can use this gun to good effect, picking on that heavy that can't see him. Nice shot again. Tracked the yeah, looks like he tracked him, but no, takes him down. So there you go, speed to get to a situation where you can try and use the snipey gun. That's what a sniping medium has to do. So looking for, oh, there's a new target there, Tiger, nice shot. Look at this. The engagement for him in this tank is medium to, well, at the moment it's long range engagement, and kind of that's where these sniping mediums come into their own. So just notice there's tanks coming up the hill, puts a lovely shot into that Centurion at that sort of distance. Wow. Nice shot into the other Centurion. High velocity round this, fires very fast, so does hit the target very quickly after you've fired, which means you don't have to lead so much with your shell. He's firing a load of blind shots up there. Fortunately he's lost his spot. He's asking the T-54 to have another go up and have a little bit more of a look, but at the moment he doesn't want to know, and I don't blame him. There's at least 4 enemy mediums up there on the hill, and a little old light tank is not going to come off so well in that kind of engagement. So instead he's changed his target to more... Oh, hang on, here we go. We've got more friends to fire at. Centurion puts a shell through him, even though he's pulling back, and no chance. Oh, 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 oh. Nah. Object 257 was basically angled. Misses the AMX. No more shots, sadly. Oh, no, hang on. AMX is back. Got to lead the shell enough. No, that was always a hell of a difficult shell from there. Difficult shell, difficult shot. So it's 5 plays 4. He's on 1400 damage. Which is not bad when you're only doing an average of well, about 200 a shot, something like that. Now he's using his speed again, relocating. He's going to go and try and help that Leo out. Leo's screaming for help against the Oni. So Lonely Boy has basically told him he's coming. He's loaded up with a premium shell. Unfortunately leaves the Oni on 5 health. But should get the shot before the Oni can reload, and sure enough he does. Swaps immediately back to standard rounds to go off to the STA-1. STA-1 is just a medium tank, so doesn't need the penetration that premium gives him. And here we go, we're going to use this as a much more traditional medium now. We're going to be a bit more aggressive. Team are losing, however. STA-1 don't want anything to do with him, and he's actually running. Now Lowly Boy doesn't want to poke over that hill because there's a fair chance there's a TD sitting down the other side, and he could then end up finding a big old hole in his turret. Bit of a blind shot there. Oh, the enemy WZ down there. Oh, look at that. And here we go. This is this gun again. Accurate, fast firing. That's what sniping mediums are capable of. Now he hasn't camped base to do this. He's moved around the map. Moved up to the edge of the rocks where he knew he'd get some nice long range shots. Then he moved up to support the tanks against the Oni and the STA-1. And now he's going to start relocating again. The team are struggling. It's 6 plays 8. So he doesn't want to push, does not want to push any further towards the enemy camp. He's going to come back and try and support the heavy line, which is a little isolated. There's only 2 left. If they can't stop that up, then we're going to have no chance of stopping them just pouring around into our cap and up our Jaxie. So Lonely Boy is coming round. Again, he's using this mobility that his tank has to relocate. Look at the opportunities he's creating for himself. Nice shot into the Centurion. Enemy light tank, come on. Nice. Did get spotted there. The first time I think this game, isn't it? I think. Trying to get to a vantage point where he can use that gun to good effect. Again, that's what the sniper has to do. Get to situations where you can keep sniping. Keep utilising your gun, keep that DPM pumping out shots. Takes out the French heavy there. He's got himself into a lovely position here where he can support those heavies down in the valley, on the edge of the valley. Try and even out the odds a bit. It'll be tough to pen that object from here, but it's having a go. Did indeed, through the front plate there. because it's angled towards him. He's over angling there. That time shell didn't go where he wanted him to go. IS just pulled back. Shame. So again, he's got into the situation where he's got the enemy scared. Now he's seen the STAs coming around this way. So again, using the mobility, using his opportunity to come round and try and help the pilot out. But no need to worry about that. Pilot's down. It's 10-all. Ooh, now talk about opportunity knocks. Now he's playing the role of fire brigade. 704 coming around the back. Borsig down through the middle. Oh, and there's a light tank through the middle as well. Oh dear, there goes our Tiger. Down to 3 tanks left. He's had a monstrously good game. 3,000 damage so far. But it looks like it could be on a hiding to nothing. Nice shot. Doesn't hang around. He doesn't want to be taken for granted that he wasn't spotted until he knows for sure he wasn't. 704 manages to get safe. There is only one tank in it, but the enemy have twice the hit points that we do. So we've got to try and do something about that. .704 is still carrying on, but he's been whittled down. He should see us now, surely. Oh, Sixth Sense. It has got a Sixth Sense on this crew. Okay. Oh, where's that 704 gone? Another tank down. It's only the heavy tank number 4 and, oh sorry, type 4 heavy and Lonely Boy left. Soon he will truly be a lonely boy, I think. Just wants to take out that 704 and then he can go and oh well, take out the light tank instead. That's always a good option. Oh, he took a shot. Come on, you can get him. Oh, the 704's with the light tank. Needs to get rid of one of these guys. Nice. Now he's onto the rear of the 704. 704 does the right thing and moves forward. Shoots him up the jacksie and bounces, of course. And we got catch the pigeon. Catch the pigeon. Catch the pigeon. 704 is trying to get to a situation where he can rotate round with a safe rear, but this is not looking good for him. So Lonely Boy's going to try and track him in place, and he does, but he repairs it instantly. Okay, so what's he going to do here? Oh, whoa, that was worth the tracking just to do that. Nicely done. 4,900 damage. It's 1v2. There's an IS and the Borsig left against Lonely Boy, who is lonely. So he's had a cracking game. But again, hopefully getting this point, it's about, with a sniping medium like this, it's about using your mobility to get to a situation where you have the advantage. So shoot at distance if you can. If you can't, just when you've got the enemy bang to rights, and only go in when you've got a huge advantage. He had a big health pull there versus that light tank and the object, and he took a little bit of calculated guess or risk that if he went in for the light tank, then he only had to dodge one shell from the 704 and he should be alright, and that's exactly how it transpired. So nicely done. Now the reason why these sort of snipey tanks are not great for or not really designed for brawling is that they just don't have the alpha. So when you're getting smacked for 250, 300 average damage, that kind of hurts a lot. So whereas this thing is doing what, seeing numbers are popping up 170, that sort of number average damage, which is just not really going to worry too many people. However, you make up for it in your mobility, and that's what Lonely Boy has done. So if we can get rid of this IS, don't know where the Borsig went. It's a bit of catch and mouse. Catchy mouth. It's a bit of cat and mouth. I did it again. Cat and mouse. There you go. Mobility again, right? Just use that mobility to get round behind or to the side of that IS and took him down. So it's 101 against 1. There is only well, less than 2 minutes left in the game. It's just that Borsig, and there he is. He's loaded an HE round, puts a nice shell, but gets smacked in return. Now he can take a little bit more time, aiming for the gun shield. 300, still hasn't finished him off. Take one more hit, but he can't take one more hit. So what's he going to do? One thing's for sure, he's not going to come at him from the same direction. He's going to try and use this, again, the mobility of this medium, to come at an area where the Borsig is not expecting him to come from. He needs this kill for Top Gun. 6,000 damage again. Wow, very impressive. Where's the Borsig gone? It's got HE loaded, and he takes him down. Whoa, very nicely done. There you go. What a good game. So there you go. That was Lonely Boy driving the Tier 8 German medium premium tank, getting an ace tanker, bruiser, duelist, fire for effect. He got Lavzlovsky's medal for destroying 2 tanks of at least 1 tier higher in a medium. He got high caliber, and of course he got his Top Gun. Finished up with a very impressive 6,976 damage, 6 kills, 1785 base XP. Excellent job. 539 shells, hit with 33 and penned with 31 for that nearly 700 damage. Didn't take any damage himself, and even got 55 reset points for hitting that Borsig. Now he did fire a bit of premium, but even so, 161,000 credits, paid 56 in premium shell primarily to recover that, and also used consumables, so he ended up only making 49,000 credits at the end of that game. After a monster game like that, seems a little unfair somehow. Also, with his bonuses and his bonus for playing in a premium or in a platoon, he came out with 3,214 XP. So as you can see, the role of the medium tank is that hybrid between light tank and heavy tank. It's not going to perform the same kind of function on the battlefield as either of those other tanks, but it sort of sits in between. It can do a bit of both without being fantastic at them. And really where this tank, this class of tanks, comes into its own is around that mobility, to utilize its strengths in getting to the flanks, to getting around, to circling, to wolf packing enemy vehicles as much as possible. Not usually in a stand-up fight, and it's even more important within the auto-loading types. You know, it's about them being able to optimize the best use of their clip, so they have 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, shells within their magazine, and it's about knowing at what point to unleash yourself, to unleash that clip to take down an enemy tank, or at least severely cripple one, before you bolt away and then reload. The difference obviously is the sniper mediums. Now they, as I say, they're very much about keeping that distance, keeping the engagement at longer ranges, to utilize their accuracy and generally high DPM and high penetration and high velocity shell for that matter, to try and pick off enemy tanks or knock out crippled enemy tanks as much as possible, and then use their mobility to relocate and get to a different spot where they can influence the game. So anyway, I hope you found it useful. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. In the meantime, enjoy your games, have fun, try not to take it too seriously, and we'll see you again soon. This is Gamer Dom, signing out.